Welcome to part 4 of the 308 pre-charged pneumatic airgun build on the Airgun development channel. In this episode I add an extension tube, secure the barrel, test fire, make a temporary wood stock, mill the dovetail for a scope, and finally take the rifle out shooting in its current state. I wanted to keep the barrel length as long as possible in order to gain feet per second. In order to be able to do that, a 6-inch extension needed to be attached to the main pipe. The other option was to source a longer aluminum pipe, but that requires more milling and screw holes to be drilled and tapped, so I decided the route I would go would be to add an extension. Before I could cut any thread, I had to ensure I could thread the adapter for the main pipe and extension along with the end cap, so I spent a little time practicing on the mini lathe. A quick hand sketch for reference. I had no issues cutting thread on the adapter and the end cap. However, the aluminum pipe being 1.25" diameter and long wasn't something I could thread at home on my mini lathe. Thankfully, a co-worker let me use his lathe to cut the internal pipe threads on the main pipe and the extension. Now the adapter needed to have a slip fit over the barrel. Material was also removed on both sides to reduce the weight. Only a small area on the bore of the adapter is needed to locate the barrel. The end cap serves two purposes in my design. First, it centers the barrel, and second, it also keeps the barrel in the tube. A little machining, test fitting, and more machining until the perfect fit between the parts was achieved. Holes in the main pipe were also required to support the barrel. It got a little tricky determining the hole locations. Due to the barrel being rather thin, the set screws cannot be tightened too much, otherwise it would deform the barrel and cause a tight spot in the barrel for the pellet to pass through. Using a heavier barrel, meaning thicker wall, would require a larger OD main pipe or lathing down the one end of the barrel, much like the OEM barrels of the Air Force rifles. With the barrel now fully supported and secured, it was time for a test fire with an actual projectile. I hadn't yet cast any pellets for this barrel, so I made a quick slug. Years ago, I made a simple mold to cast half-inch lead rods that I could then turn on the lathe to any size or design that was required for some testing. In this case, I laid a simple point and a couple of rings to engage the rifling, then performed a test fire of the airgun. After the test fire, I cut the pine 2x4 in half. Notice how much the slug compacted due to the hardness of impacting the knot. I'm sure the slug would have traveled further if it hadn't hit the knot. Before I could take the gun outdoors, I wanted to have some kind of stock to hold on to. Without a stock, it makes a rifle very difficult to hold and position comfortably for shooting. A while ago, I bought some mahogany links from work and glued a length at an angle for the rifle grip, then proceeded to mill and fit the stock to the airgun platform. For my design, the stock doesn't just allow a means to hold the airgun. The other purpose of the stock is to keep all the pins for the trigger and the sear components in place along the rail. The stock is held in place much like the Airforce Condor, a screw in the grip and a screw in the forestock or forend of the stock. Another thing the airgun required was a way to mount the scope. I set up the top rail to mill the dovetails and used a 60-degree dovetail end mill to mill the slots on both sides. To remove a sharp edge formed while milling, I shaved the dovetail ever so slightly to remove the sharpness of the edge. Of course, one requires pellets to go shooting. As mentioned in a previous video, I had the barrel made by a well-known airgun builder. He also made a mold with a pellet design that he knew worked well with his rifles. He sold me the barrel, the mold, and the sizing tool on a condition that I would never reveal his pellet design publicly, hence the blurred image of the casted pellets. I had to find some pure lead to cast pellets, not that easy to find when you don't know where to look. I scored 25 pounds from a buy and sell when I posted a looking for ad. I did find another source at $2 per pound for pure lead. I will consider them in the future due to the cost, but they have an almost unlimited supply. I get about 70-100 green pellets from 1 pound of lead. I wanted to take my Airforce Condor along for the shoot. Due to the valve I was testing breaking internally, I had to switch the barrels from the .25 to the .22 caliber. Also replaced all the internal components with the factory parts, all but the mainspring, which I couldn't find. To fill my scuba tank at the local paintball park, I had to make a fill adapter to use their Foster connector. Starting with 2,800 psi in the scuba tank, the 308's Airgun's reservoir was filled. I took a shot and poof, out went all the air. I filled the reservoir again and shot, another poof, and the valve dumped all the air. I was able to get one reading on the chronograph, 776 feet per second with a 100 grain pellet equals 133.75 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. I did manage to get one shot on paper before calling it quits, but no groups to start determining any accuracy. It was very disappointing that the valve kept dumping the air. A few days before the shoot, I purchased a used Anschutz brake barrel rifle. The guy who sold it said it belonged to their club and had no need of it anymore. He also stated it was a 1,000 feet per second rifle. Unfortunately, I had taken his word on it and was disappointed at the 415 on the chronograph. It comes down to buyer beware. Back home. What caused the valve to dump? It could be many factors. The biggest issue could be the mainspring applying too much force to the hammer. A thinner spring may help resolve the air dumping, as the valve will not be opened as far. A lighter hammer might help keep the valve from being opened too far. The internal valve spring might need to be beefed up as well to resist the hammer strike. I have more testing and spring force balancing in order to make the next outing more successful. During the video I stated I couldn't find the factory mainspring for my Airforce Condor. Well, I found it. It has been staring me in the face for weeks. So, when will I get back to this project? I'm hoping that I can continue on the rifle this spring. I really appreciate all those who have subscribed and would love to hear your thoughts on the project in the comments below. Thanks for watching and stay safe.